Hello there, my name is Zhenya, and today I want to share my thoughts with you about The Beginner's Guide, a game by Davey Wreden. I want to tell right from the start that my thoughts about this may be not exactly the most common thoughts, but perhaps this is what will be interesting for some of you. So Davey Wreden, as we know, became famous when he released the Stanley Parable. But this game isn't similar to Stanley Parable, like at all. Right here, things that are happening on the screen are not related, almost not related to the plot. The whole plot, is given by the narrator. And those who tend to just complete the game without thinking too much about what the narrator is saying, they risk missing something really important. Because once I started to think about the plot of this game, like really hard, I came to the conclusion that it's like complete nuts. And I was amazed by this so much that I really wanted to share it with you. So, the game starts with the narrator. This is Davey Wreden's voice, but I'll just call him the narrator, cheerfully saying to us that he wants to introduce his friend, Coda, and his games to us. So apparently at the time, Coda used to make some really bizarre and strange games and never showed them to anyone. Perhaps because they were too bizarre and weird. Okay, he did show them to the narrator, apparently, but no one else. So he was making them just for himself. And he created a whole pack of games and then disappeared. And so the narrator was left with a pack of his games and apparently decided to release them on Steam, to sell them for $5, well, without paying Coda a dime. But okay, he did it out of the best intentions, okay? So perhaps Coda one day will see this and he will decide to come back and he'll see how successful his games are and maybe he'll want to make some more games and perhaps Davey will even share some profits with him. Okay, by now it's obvious that this story is complete fiction. Mostly because of this financial/legal/copyright aspect. But let's assume that it really happened. Let's assume that this was a real story. Let's just concentrate on the plot, like I said. So, the plot. A long time ago, in 2008, Coda learned a game engine called Source and started with a Counter-Strike level. A pretty nice level. I mean, for someone who just started using Source, it's really a pretty nice first try. So apparently Coda liked it. And after that he decided to create a first-person shooter. Okay, so here's our shooter. Well, perhaps he didn't really finish it because there's no one to shoot at, but that's not the most important thing. The most important thing, as the narrator is telling, is this. While Coda was making it, he encountered a glitch somewhere, and he soared above his own game level. And this triggered something in his mind. And he thought, there's something special to it, you know? Perhaps there's some deep meaning to it. And so instead of making, some usual common shooters, he decided that he wanted to make these unusual game designs with some deep meaning, some experimental games, So, like this one, here's a room where you can only walk backwards. And this perhaps symbolizes the way we walk daily into the future that we cannot see. We can only see the past, which is behind us. Or, here's a room in an empty concrete block filled with idea for new games, which symbolizes the rich interior of Coda, his rich mind. Apparently, looking at this concrete box, his exterior was not so nice. But anyway, here's another level where there's nothing special inside in the room, but there are these amazing huge labyrinths outside, which the player cannot see. And this symbolizes, maybe this symbolizes that Coda was simply having fun with the game engine. But somehow the narrator doesn't think that. He thinks that this must absolutely symbolize something deep and serious. he just never could really explain what it was. Here's another level where you have to walk in complete darkness on the road, and this symbolizes, I'm not sure, perhaps that soon you'll have to change your pants because you'll be too scared. Okay, I'm joking. Nothing scary going on here. Or here's a puzzle door, and it also must symbolize something. Or here's a lamppost at the end of the level, and it definitely must symbolize something really deep. And after hearing all this symbolizing stuff from the narrator, you notice that it starts to get irritating, kind of. You know, judging by the things he's telling, it was irritating not only for me, but it was also irritating for Coda. Because when the narrator was playing Coda's games, which were not intended for the public, I remind you, he was trying to argue with Coda that he's doing something wrong, that he's making games not exactly right. And this, well, I don't know how to... You know, when you try to share something deeply personal with your friend and he's saying, oh, well, I don't like that, I'd do it differently, you know, if I were you. That's not too nice. Okay, anyway, they were arguing a lot about how to make games, how one should create games correctly, and the narrator was trying to prove that games should be playable. He called this playable. There was a game a bit further where he felt really kind of that, you know, itch about the level being unplayable from his perspective. You see, here's the house. We're in the house and we're cleaning. We're doing cleaning, doing chores, you know, and it feels kind of cozy, warm, while it's winter and cold and snow outside. And I don't know about you, but I clearly felt that I don't want to go out of this house. Coda specifically made it this way so that you don't have to leave, because it feels good inside and it definitely doesn't feel good outside. So you're just supposed to stay in the house indefinitely. But the narrator just can't stand it. How can it be? The game should be playable. I should be able to get from point A to point B. Because, how did he put it? You have to keep moving because it's the only way to stay alive. So he broke this game, he hacked into this game, and he made us to move from point A to point B. And he also put the lamppost in the point B to symbolize some deep meaning. So that's not just the end of the destination, that's the end of your destination with a deep meaning, you know. Okay, so anyway, the narrator was arguing that games should be playable, and Coda basically gave him a hint that his games don't have to be like anything, and he's free to do them in whatever way he wants. And this apparently triggered something in the narrator's really smart head, and so he started to think, so Coda is doing games in whatever way he wants. So how, by looking at his games, can I understand what he really wants? And all the following plot is built on this single thought. A brilliant thought. A really, really brilliant thought. How to dive into someone's head by looking at their art. I'm not kidding, it's just brilliant. I don't know about you, but when I was still in school, on literature lessons, the teacher always liked to come up with some deep meaning by various words, phrases, descriptions about the plot, about the characters, whatever. But here the narrator takes it one step further. He tries to judge not only by something in the game itself, by this symbolizes that or whatever. He's trying to guess what the game says about its creator. He's literally saying about seeing the voices in his head. Okay, so here's a game where, by Coda's design, everybody can walk online and leave notes. And Coda has made a lot of notes here himself. Apparently, if you ask me, he did it just to test the game properly. But according to the narrator, no, this should mean that Coda's really lonely, that he has no one to talk to. And so he's talking to himself, pretending that these notes are left by other people, and it's so sad. Oh, come on. Oh, here's another game. Here's another game with a room with metal bars, which apparently symbolizes prison. And once again the narrator says, oh no, this must symbolize that Koda feels as if he's in prison, that he's perhaps depressed or something. And so the narrator thinks, oh my god, I should save him. I'm not joking, he really starts thinking this way. Seriously. You know, if I could have any influence on this situation, I would do my best to try and keep the narrator as far away from Koda as possible at this point. But, oh, here's another one, this is a good one. There was a game which Koda spent 4 months to make, and the narrator was worried that this is kind of long. And I mean, come on. Doesn't Koda have a life? He should be creating new games for you day and night or what? Maybe he just wanted to have a rest, maybe he just wanted to read some interesting book, maybe he wanted to watch a Game of Thrones, you know. Okay, there was no Game of Thrones back then, but you get the point. The point is, leave the guy alone, stop picking on him. But no, the narrator just cannot stop. Oh, one more depressive game. Koda doesn't want to interact with people, he decided to withdraw from society or whatever. He's scaring me. And then it becomes worse, because Koda starts to directly say in his games that he is losing inspiration. I personally think he just wanted to troll the narrator this way, because you need clearly a lot of inspiration to create levels like this. Seriously, if you have no inspiration, all you can create is an empty box. So I really like to think that Koda just decided to, you know, to do this as some joke. Just give him a hint, yeah, okay, I feel bad, maybe it's because of you. Maybe it's your fault, maybe it's because you are constantly standing over my shoulder, keeping telling me how to do everything, keeping asking, where are new games, Koda? Where are new games? Come on, come up with some new game already, I wanna play it. Maybe now you leave me alone. But, well, our narrator is probably not so smart. So he believed that perhaps there will be no new games from Koda anymore. And he's so scared. Apparently he's just got addicted to Koda's games. So just the thought that Koda might stop making games, find some new hobby or whatever, no, the narrator isn't gonna allow him that. And so he comes up with another brilliant thought. In order to motivate Koda to make more games, what he needs is to advertise them. To take the whole bunch of games Koda has already made and show them to his friends, to the narrator's friends, mind you, to Koda, they're complete strangers, and the narrator just takes his games and without his permission, without saying a word to him, is putting something, you know, personal for him, maybe something intimate for him, on the public view for everyone to see. And when I look at this scene, I'd like to think that it's not really Koda with the gun. No, it's a narrator. It's a narrator who's ruining Koda's games with his analysis, with his criticism and whatnot. And apparently he also likes it and doesn't see anything wrong with it. And this was something that Koda just could not stand. And so he responded. In his own way, he created another game, specifically for the narrator. And this was his last game. And this whole game is basically one big screw you. Because, first of all, you just cannot beat this game. You cannot finish it. There's just no way to finish it honestly, because it has an invisible maze, it has a place where you have to randomly guess 6-digit code, it has a door which just doesn't open because the switch is on the other side. But, well, we have a really smart narrator here, so he really likes to break into Koda's games and change stuff inside them, so he changed this game too. He found a way around to beat this game completely and move all the way to the top. And while he was doing this along the way, he also accidentally confessed that he was actually almost like torturing the poor soul by interrogating him, by trying to get some explanation. Explanation about what? What this means, what that means. What 3 dots mean? Oh my god, you think the creator is capable of giving you an explanation each and every time? I remember another game which I stumbled upon recently, which was called Awkward Dimensions. In some way it's really similar to Koda's games, because it's made by an individual perhaps similar to Koda but in real life. and I could actually recommend you to play that. It's free on Steam. So this guy literally made some game levels from his dreams. Okay, he saw some landscapes at night in a dream and created a game level out of it. That's it. What was the hidden meaning in this? I mean, he himself couldn't tell you. He just doesn't know. He just liked what he saw, that's all. Anyway, so in the end, the narrator finally sees the message that he perhaps deserved to see. A direct request from Coda to leave him alone and never speak to him anymore. Okay? You think I'm making these games for you? You think you have the right to demand anything? I simply cannot work when you are around anymore. And you're sharing my games with other people without my permission. And mind you, he's continuing to do this. He released this pack of games in Steam. He receives money for this. Okay, I get it. The story is fiction, because otherwise Coda could just come back and just grab poor Davey by the balls, and it would hurt so bad. So bad. And now the narrator becomes hysterical. Oh, okay. But now that we've almost completed the game, let us rewind it a little bit to the beginning. What was the narrator telling us from the beginning?
They are all going to give us access to their creator. I want us to see past the games themselves. I want to get to know who this human being really is. And that's exactly what we're going to do here.
So, did you manage to know who this person really is?
I don't know this person. I have no idea who this person is.
Okay.
There's a bigger picture that all of his games are meant to play a role in. Some larger meaning that we won't be able to grasp until we've seen all of them. And once we have, we can step back and start to understand what exactly that bigger picture is.
Okay, we have seen them all, we have played all of them. So, where's this larger meaning? Care to explain us what it is?
His games are just going to become a lot more cohesive, a lot more fully developed, with more of a clear idea behind them. And as we go, that idea will get clearer and clearer and clearer.
So, where's the clear idea? So the narrator has promised all of this right at the beginning of the game, and where is any of it? The only clear thing we get at the end is his hysterical cries. But I don't see much of, large meaning and clear ideas of Coda's games from the narrator. Because it's simply not true, because the narrator confesses himself at the end, in the epilogue, that all of his analysis isn't basically worth anything. Well, better late than never, I guess. But the thing is, the most important thing is, he knew at the beginning that he failed. He knew at the beginning that there was no idea that he could ever extract. So why was he lying to people at the start? Did he want to make it a plot twist? Is that the reason? Oh, and also he confesses that the main reason he failed so miserably with Coda is because he cannot live without external validation. And so once he saw the person who was so unlike him, the narrator, that he didn't need any external validation at all. So he, the narrator, ended up physically incapable of understanding this person, that he ended up literally destroying all of their relationships. Out of best intentions. Yeah. Great job. And now, finally, remembering that all of this work is fiction, there's one last question. Why has Dave even told us this story? Because, if it was a real story, it could just be a story about some person being a complete idiot, but this cannot be the case here. There should be some, meaning to this. And I'm gonna tell you what I think it is. This game is a parody or satire on criticism, on critics. Like movie critics, literature critics. And, no, I don't want to say all of them are bad. There are good critics who are not biased, who truly help people to make the right choice, if this movie or this game is good or bad, and why it's so, and whatever. But there are also a lot of people like this. People who are willing to fabricate some deep meaning from tiny details and such nitpicking that it becomes a pure nonsense. And presenting it like they have a really important expert opinion. And The narrator in this game is an example of such a critic who ended up giving literal medical diagnosis to a person by looking at his work. And in the end, he failed miserably. So the moral of the story is that sometimes 3 dots are just, well, 3 dots, and you shouldn't look for any deep meaning in them. Don't be like the narrator here, he's not really a role model. Not at all. So, I guess I said all I wanted to say, and I will leave you for the final scene, because it's really beautiful and it's really nice to watch in silence. So, I hope you liked it, and thank you for watching.